The newsroom lights buzzed faintly as Lena Morales typed away on her laptop, the quiet hum of computers filling the air. It was another ordinary morning at Albany Public Radio until the news alert appeared on her screen. The headline was bold, almost shocking. CNN turns on Letitia James after Democrats demand her resignation. Lena froze for a second, reading it twice. She wasn't sure what caught her more off guard, the words themselves or the reaction she knew was about to follow. Across the room, Jordan Hayes, the senior editor, was stirring sugar into his coffee when he noticed Lena's expression. "What happened?" he asked. "CNN just ran a piece calling out Letitia James," she said. "They're questioning her credibility, and apparently even some Democrats want her out." Jordan raised an eyebrow but didn't look surprised. "Well," he said, "maybe they finally found their backbone." The newsroom wasn't big, just a few desks, a few tired reporters, and the steady flicker of screens showing national headlines. But in that small space, the tension suddenly grew heavy. Lena turned toward Jordan. "You really think this is about backbone? Feels more like strategy. People don't just turn overnight." Jordan shrugged, sipping his coffee. "Or maybe the truth caught up. No one stays untouchable forever." Their coworker Brianna poked her head over her monitor. Wait, are they really going after her? CNN? "That's wild," Lena nodded, scrolling through the article. "It's not just one story. It's a segment. Panel discussion, analysis, the whole 9 yards." Brianna gave a low whistle. "Guess that's news about the news now." Lena smiled faintly but didn't laugh. She'd always believed journalism had a duty, not to protect or attack, but to uncover. Yet something about this headline felt staged, like a chess move rather than a moment of truth. She kept reading, noticing the language. It wasn't purely factual. It was emotional, charged. Jordan leaned over her shoulder. "See, that's the thing," he said. "When people accuse the press of bias, it's not just who they cover, it's how." "Tone says everything." Lena looked at him. "So what's your take? You think CNN's doing the right thing?" "I think they're doing what they should have done all along. Treating everyone the same. No favorites, no protection. If there's smoke, you report it." Lena sighed, not convinced. "But timing matters. Why now? Why not months ago?" "Feels like someone gave the green light to go hard. That's not courage. That's convenience." Jordan smiled a little, the way seasoned editors do when they hear a young reporter question the system. "Welcome to politics, Lena. Nothing happens by accident." But Lena wasn't ready to drop it. "Still," she said, "don't you think it's dangerous? People trust news less and less. Every time something like this happens, half the audience thinks it's truth, and the other half thinks it's betrayal." Jordan set down his mug. "Maybe that's the price of honesty." "You can't please everyone," Brianna chimed in from her desk. "Or maybe it's not about honesty at all. Maybe it's about views. Outrage sells. Even criticism can be profitable." The room went quiet again. No one disagreed, but no one wanted to say it out loud either. Lena turned back to her laptop, typing notes for the noon broadcast. The newsroom clock ticked loudly, and outside, the first snow of November began to fall. She could feel a story forming. Not about the Attorney General, not even about CNN, but about what happens when trust starts to crack. A notification popped up from the newsroom chat. Miguel, their college intern, sent a link to a trending social media thread. Thousands of comments were flying back and forth. Some cheering the network for finally being fair. Others calling it a political hit job. The divide was instant, predictable, and exhausting. Lena typed quickly. "Look at this. People aren't even talking about the case anymore. It's all about who's lying, who's bought, who's fake. No one's actually asking what's true." Jordan nodded slowly. "That's the real story, not the scandal. The reaction to it." Lena looked up. "You think we should cover it?" "I think we should talk about why people don't trust what they read anymore. This headline just proves it." The two sat in silence for a moment, the tension easing into thought. Outside, the city's gray skyline loomed against the snow. Inside, the screens glowed with a mix of headlines, comments, and questions, none of them with easy answers. Jordan's phone buzzed. A message from a colleague at a bigger station. "Careful how you frame that CNN story. Everyone's watching." He sighed and put his phone face down. "Pressure?" Lena asked. "Always," he said. "That's the business. You tell the truth, but you better tell it neatly." Lena smiled faintly. "Or they stop calling it truth." That line hung in the air, heavier than the headline itself. By noon, the newsroom was alive again. Phones rang, producers checked sound levels, and anchors rehearsed their lines. But Lena couldn't shake the thought. What if truth itself had become a brand? Something networks sold like a product, packaged for whoever was most willing to buy it. She watched as Jordan gave directions to the team, calm and measured, the way he always was. He believed in balance. Report facts, avoid drama, don't speculate. But even he couldn't escape the noise. At her desk, Lena opened a blank document and typed a title. When the messenger becomes the message. She didn't know yet if it would become a story, a column, or just a note to herself, but she had to get it down before the moment passed. Her first line read, "The public no longer debates what's true, only who's telling it." As the clock struck 12 and the red on-air sign lit up, Lena's piece wasn't ready, but her perspective was shifting. Maybe journalism wasn't about protecting sides anymore. Maybe it was about protecting meaning, keeping people from giving up on the idea that facts could still matter. Jordan passed by, tapping her desk. "You good?" "Yeah," she said, glancing at her screen. "Just thinking." "Good. Thinking's the part that keeps us human." The segment aired. Not the CNN story yet, but a routine update. Still, for Lena, something had changed. That headline had opened a door she couldn't close. It wasn't about who was right or wrong. It was about how easily narratives could twist depending on who told them and when. As the day wound down, she looked out at the snowfall, soft and quiet, blanketing the city in white. News came and went, but questions lingered. How do you stay truthful in a world that rewards noise? How do you trust when everyone's selling certainty? She didn't know yet, but she knew this. Every headline had a heartbeat. The people behind it. The ones who believed, doubted, or just wanted to understand. That's who she'd write for next. And somewhere in that hum of screens and stories, the young reporter made a quiet promise to herself, not to pick sides, but to keep searching. Because in a world of breaking news, maybe the real breaking point was when people stopped asking why. The newsroom was buzzing again the next morning. Coffee cups clinked, keyboards rattled, and everyone seemed to be talking at once. The headline about CNN and Letitia James hadn't died down. If anything, it had exploded overnight. Lena walked in with her coat still dripping from the rain, her phone lighting up with notifications. "It's everywhere," she said, dropping her bag by her desk. "Every network's spinning it differently. Some are saying CNN sold out. Others say they finally grew a conscience." Jordan, the senior editor, was already at his desk, flipping through notes for the afternoon show. "That's the media cycle," he said. "Yesterday's outrage becomes today's breakfast conversation." "But it's not just outrage anymore," Lena said, sitting down. "People are questioning everything. I read hundreds of comments this morning. Half of them don't even believe the story's real. They think it's some setup." Jordan gave a small, tired smile. "That's what happens when trust collapses. People start doubting the air they breathe." Miguel, the intern, wheeled his chair over, holding a tablet full of social media screenshots. "You should see this," he said. "There's a thread where people are arguing if the whole thing was planned by both sides, like some performance to distract from something else." Lena groaned. "And we wonder why no one knows what to believe anymore." Jordan closed his notebook. "All right," he said. "Let's do something useful with this. Let's have a real discussion. Not about the politics, but about what this says about the system itself." The small group, just the three of them, gathered near the coffee station. Jordan leaned on the counter, Miguel perched on a stool, and Lena crossed her arms, her reporter's notebook tucked under her elbow. "Okay," Jordan began. "You both read the coverage. What do you think? Did CNN do the right thing by calling out someone from their own side?" Lena was quick to answer. "I think they're reacting, not reporting. It's not bravery, it's timing. They waited until it was safe. If they really cared about fairness, they'd apply that same energy to everyone, not just when it becomes convenient." Miguel nodded slightly, kind of like when a friend only tells you the truth after everyone else already knows it. Jordan chuckled. "That's one way to put it, but maybe they just decided that journalism means calling it as it is, even if it hurts your own team." Lena frowned. "That sounds nice, but I don't buy it. Big networks move like corporations, not conscience. There's always a reason. Ratings, politics, pressure." Jordan leaned forward. "Or maybe you're being too cynical. Sometimes people just realize they've gone too far trying to protect someone. Maybe this is a correction." Lena shook her head. "You think that's what people see?" "No way. Most viewers just see betrayal. They don't think about integrity. They think about loyalty." Miguel looked between them. "That's what I don't get," he said. "Why is loyalty even part of the conversation? Shouldn't truth come first?" Lena smiled sadly. "In a perfect world, yes. But in real life, truth has teams. Everyone wants their version to win. Jordan sighed. That's the real problem. Journalism used to be about building trust through facts. Now, people only trust stories that fit their side. The rain outside grew heavier, tapping against the windows like static. The office lights reflected faintly off the glass, blurring the skyline. It was a gray day, and somehow it matched the tone of the conversation perfectly. No black or white answers, just gray. Lena pulled her notebook open, flipping to a blank page. "So, what do we do about it?" she asked. "How do we make people care about facts again?" Jordan shrugged. "We can't control belief. We can only control how we tell the story. Facts don't always win, but they last." Miguel thought for a second. But maybe people don't want facts. Maybe they want meaning. Something that feels true, not just something that is. That sentence hung in the air for a moment. It wasn't naive. It was honest. People didn't reject truth because they hated it. They rejected it because they felt disconnected from it. Jordan turned to Lena. "So, how do we give them meaning without crossing the line into manipulation?" Lena leaned back. "We tell stories that reflect people, not politics. We show what it feels like, not just what it is. Like this. CNN turning on Letitia James isn't just a political moment, it's a mirror. It shows how unstable trust has become." Jordan nodded slowly. "Good. That's the angle we'll take." For a moment, they were quiet again, listening to the hum of the air conditioning and the faint chatter from the hallway. Lena could tell Jordan was deep in thought. He always looked calm, but she knew when his mind was racing. "You know," he said finally, "it's not just the media. Everyone's divided like this now. Friends, families, co-workers. It's like we're all living in separate realities that barely touch." Miguel grinned. "That's why my mom says she doesn't talk politics at dinner anymore. She says it ruins the taste of the food." Lena laughed softly. Smart woman. But beneath the laughter, they all knew the truth. The divide wasn't just political, it was emotional. People didn't just disagree, they felt betrayed by anyone who thought differently. Jordan stood up and stretched. "All right, I want a short piece ready by 4. Something about trust, not sides. Call it a reflection, not an opinion." Lena nodded. "Got it. No finger-pointing, no blaming." Miguel added, "Maybe include some real voices. People on both sides who feel confused or disappointed. That might make it more real." "Exactly," Jordan said. "Let's show that people aren't enemies. They're just tired." As the two younger reporters went back to their desks, Jordan lingered by the window. He watched the rain blur the street below, cars moving like shadows through puddles. He thought about how many times he'd seen this pattern. Outrage, reaction, backlash, and then silence until the next headline. But this time felt different. The exhaustion wasn't just in the public, it was in the journalists too. By mid-afternoon, the newsroom quieted again. Lena was typing furiously, Miguel fact-checking, Jordan editing headlines. The story was coming together, fast-paced, balanced, human. It wasn't about Letitia James anymore. It was about the fragile connection between truth and trust. When Lena finished her draft, she read the first line out loud. "In a world full of voices, people no longer ask who's right. They ask who's real." Jordan looked up, smiled, and said, "That's your lead. Keep it." They sent the story to broadcast just before the evening rush hour. It ran for 3 minutes on air, a quiet reflection amid the noise of breaking news. No drama, no sides, just questions. Later, when the phones started ringing, the calls weren't angry. Some listeners thanked them for the calm tone. Others said it made them think differently about how they consume news. Lena leaned back in her chair, surprised. "They actually liked it?" Jordan smiled. "Truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just needs room to breathe." As the rain finally stopped outside, a sliver of sunset cut through the clouds, lighting the newsroom in soft orange. The storm had passed. For now. But Lena knew the next debate, the next divide, was already forming somewhere out there. Still, for that one day, it felt like they'd done something rare. not to change minds, but to open them. That night, the newsroom lights were dim and only a few monitors glowed against the dark glass windows. The rain had stopped, but the streets outside still shimmered with leftover water, reflecting traffic lights like red and green ribbons. Lena sat at her desk long after everyone else had gone home. She couldn't stop thinking about the story. Not just the CNN headline or the arguments they'd had in the office, but the bigger question behind it. What mattered more, loyalty or integrity? She opened her laptop again and started typing notes for her next piece, but her thoughts kept drifting. Every angle she tried felt incomplete. Journalists were supposed to be neutral, but real life wasn't. People had feelings, relationships, beliefs. No one could separate those entirely from their choices. Her phone buzzed. It was her father, calling at his usual time. "Still working?" he asked, his voice warm and tired. "Always," Lena said, smiling. "Hey, Dad, can I ask you something weird?" "Go ahead." "Do you think loyalty ever matters more than honesty?" He paused. She could almost hear him leaning back in his chair. "In personal life, sure," he said. "You stay loyal to the people you love. But in public life, no. Honesty has to come first. Otherwise, everything falls apart." "But what if honesty hurts people?" she asked softly. "What if it makes you look like a traitor?" Her father chuckled gently. "Then you find a way to tell the truth kindly. But you still tell it. The truth doesn't stop being true just because it's inconvenient." Lena leaned back, staring at the ceiling. She wanted to believe that. But after spending all day reading comment sections filled with accusations and anger, it felt harder. Everyone thought they were right. Everyone believed their version of honesty. After they hung up, Lena scrolled through social media one more time. Every post about the Letitia James story was still dividing people. Democrats attacking each other, conservatives celebrating the chaos, ordinary citizens arguing under every tweet. The conversation wasn't even about facts anymore. It was about loyalty. The next morning, she walked into the newsroom early. Jordan was already there, reviewing clips for the afternoon discussion panel. He looked exhausted, his tie slightly crooked, eyes red from too much coffee and too little sleep. "Long night?" she asked. "Too many emails," he said. "Half of them say we're biased against James. The other half say we're biased for her. I guess that means we're doing something right." Lena smiled weakly. "Or something wrong, depending on who you ask." He set down his coffee. "You still thinking about that question you asked yesterday?" She nodded. "Yeah. I talked to my dad about it. He said honesty comes first. But I don't know if people actually believe that anymore. Everyone's loyal to something, a cause, a person, a team." Jordan nodded slowly. "True. But integrity isn't about never taking sides. It's about making sure your side doesn't blind you." Lena thought about that. "So you think CNN did the right thing?" "I think they did something brave," he said. "But bravery isn't the same as purity. Maybe it's both. Integrity and politics mixed together. That's how the real world works." Miguel walked in just then, carrying 2 bagels and his usual energy. "Morning, truth seekers," he said, setting one bagel in front of Lena. "I read this crazy thread last night. People are saying CNN's whole segment was planned weeks in advance. Like it was all theater." Jordan groaned. "Of course they are. Everything's a conspiracy now." Miguel shrugged. "Can you blame them? The line between honesty and performance is thin. Even when someone does the right thing, no one believes it's genuine anymore." Lena looked at him. "That's what scares me most. What happens when people stop believing anyone is sincere?" Jordan rubbed his temples. "Then we lose the foundation. If people stop trusting intention, everything becomes noise." The office grew quiet again, the only sound coming from a nearby printer spitting out paper. The smell of fresh coffee lingered in the air. Outside, sunlight broke through the clouds, streaking the room with gold. Jordan finally said, "You know, my wife and I talked about this last night. She's a teacher. She said her students don't even bother checking sources anymore. They just pick what feels right. Can you imagine that? Feelings over facts." Lena frowned. "That's exactly what I've been thinking. People don't ask what's true. They ask who said it." Miguel looked thoughtful. "Maybe that's why loyalty wins. It feels safer than truth." Lena nodded. "Yeah, Truth changes. Loyalty stays put. Even when it's wrong, it gives people something to hold on to. Jordan looked at both of them. So maybe our job isn't just to report facts, it's to rebuild trust. Remind people that honesty isn't betrayal. That line stuck with Lena. Honesty isn't betrayal. Later that afternoon, while preparing for her next story, she found herself writing those words in bold letters across her notebook. She wanted to believe that truth could still matter, that doing the right thing, even when unpopular, was worth it. But the more she thought, the more complicated it became. What if loyalty wasn't always blind? What if sometimes loyalty was a form of integrity? Standing by someone until they have the chance to explain. She typed quickly, her thoughts racing. Maybe the real conflict isn't between loyalty and honesty. Maybe it's between patience and pride. She paused, reread that line, and smiled faintly. It felt right. Around 4 p.m., the team gathered in the studio for a short discussion segment. The topic was the same headline that had started everything: CNN's criticism of Letitia James. The debate was calm but sharp. Facts versus emotion, loyalty versus accountability. Lena moderated the talk with two guests, a local law professor and a retired campaign advisor. The professor argued that accountability must always come first. Even allies must be held to standards. The advisor disagreed, saying loyalty builds stability, and constant criticism weakens trust. As they spoke, Lena watched them closely. Both made good points, but she noticed something interesting. They weren't really arguing about politics. They were arguing about values, about how people decide who deserves their trust. When the show ended, Jordan clapped her on the shoulder. "Good segment," he said. "Balanced. Thoughtful." "Thanks," she said, unplugging her mic. "You know, I think this whole debate, CNN, Letitia James, all of it, it's really just a reflection of us. We want justice, but we also want to belong. And those two things don't always play nice," Jordan smiled. "Exactly. Integrity asks for courage. Loyalty asks for heart. Most people want both, but sometimes you can only choose one." That night, Lena walked home through the quiet streets. The city lights shimmered in puddles, and her reflection followed beside her. She thought about her father's words, about Jordan's advice, about the arguments and headlines. Maybe the answer wasn't clear because it wasn't supposed to be. Maybe integrity and loyalty weren't enemies, just two sides of the same struggle. Both mattered. Both could be dangerous in excess. When she finally reached her apartment, she opened her window and let the cool night air in. She didn't have the answers, but she knew the right question now. Not who's right or who's loyal, but how do we stay honest without losing compassion? She wrote that question on a sticky note and placed it above her desk. Tomorrow, she would keep searching, because in a world full of noise, maybe the only real loyalty left was to the truth itself. The next morning, the newsroom felt strangely calm. The storm of opinions that had flooded their inboxes was finally slowing down. Outside, the sky was pale blue, and sunlight spilled across the desks. Lena walked in early, holding a cup of black coffee and her notes from last night. She looked more confident, more centered. For days she'd been chasing meaning, truth, loyalty, integrity. But now she was ready to turn all that reflection into something real. Jordan was already there, reviewing the lineup for the afternoon show. He looked up as she entered. "You're early," he said with a small smile. "I couldn't sleep," Lena admitted. "I think I know how I want to finish the story." Jordan nodded. "Good. Let's hear it." She opened her notebook and read aloud. "This isn't about CNN or Letitia James anymore. It's about how people react when truth stops feeling comfortable. When honesty comes from an unexpected source, do we still welcome it, or do we turn away?" Jordan leaned back, thinking. "I like it. It's simple, but it hits deep. Keep that tone. Calm, reflective. Don't lecture people. Just invite them to think," Lena nodded. "That's what I'm trying to do. I don't want this to be another headline about politics. I want it to be about us. How we see truth, how we trust it." As the rest of the team trickled in, the newsroom began to hum again. Phones rang, printers beeped, keyboards clicked. But there was a quiet focus in the air, the kind that only came when everyone felt like they were part of something that mattered. Miguel walked in late, balancing a breakfast sandwich and his laptop. "Did you see the new polls?" he said. "Public trust in news hit another low this week." Jordan sighed. "Not surprising. But here's the funny thing," Miguel continued. "People say they don't trust the media, but they still keep watching. It's like everyone's angry, but they can't look away." Lena smiled. "That's because deep down, people want to believe someone's telling the truth. They just don't know who to believe anymore." Jordan looked at her and nodded. Then maybe that's our job, to remind them that truth isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Lena spent the next few hours polishing her script for the on-air segment. She wrote it the way she'd speak to a friend. Direct, human, no jargon. She wanted the story to sound real, not rehearsed. Every sentence had to make people stop and think, even for a second. When the clock hit noon, they gathered in the studio. The red on-air light blinked on. The music faded, and Lena began to speak. Good afternoon. Today's story isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about trust, how easily it's lost and how hard it is to rebuild. This week's debate over CNN and Letitia James isn't just about politics. It's about all of us. The way we choose sides, the way we protect our own, and the way we react when the truth challenges what we believe. Her voice was steady, calm, but full of emotion. Jordan watched from behind the glass, nodding approvingly. Some people say CNN showed courage by holding one of their own accountable, Lena continued. Others say they betrayed their allies. But maybe this moment isn't about sides at all. Maybe it's about something bigger. The courage to be fair, even when it's uncomfortable. She paused for a heartbeat before finishing. Because if truth becomes a team sport, then nobody really wins. Honesty has to stand on its own, no matter who it offends. That's what keeps a democracy alive. The willingness to face facts, even when they hurt. The light turned off. The segment was done. Silence filled the studio for a moment. Then Jordan smiled and said, "That was perfect. No drama, no preaching. Just truth," Lena exhaled, finally letting herself relax. "I just hope people listen," she said quietly. "Oh, they will," Jordan replied. "Maybe not everyone will agree, but they'll listen. And that's a start." An hour later, the phone lines began lighting up. Some callers said they admired the balance. Others said it made them think differently. One older listener said softly, "It's been a long time since I heard news that didn't make me angry. Thank you." Lena smiled when she heard that message play back. That one comment made all the effort worth it. Miguel came running over with his phone. "Look at this. People are sharing clips of your segment online. Some are even saying it's the most reasonable take they've heard all week." Jordan chuckled. "Reasonable. That's the biggest compliment we can get these days." The newsroom filled with a quiet energy, not excitement but relief, like they'd taken a deep breath after holding it for days. For once, the story didn't add noise to the world. It brought a little peace. Later that afternoon, when most of the staff had gone home, Lena and Jordan stayed behind to wrap up the day's files. The sunlight was fading again, painting the office in soft orange and gold. Lena turned to Jordan. "You know, I used to think journalism was about exposing things, about big moments and big headlines. But now I think it's about something smaller." "Like what?" he asked. "Like helping people see each other, helping them pause before they judge." Jordan smiled. "That's the kind of reporting we need more of. Real stories about real people. Not noise, not shouting." Lena looked around the quiet newsroom. The empty chairs, the stacks of papers. "Do you think it makes a difference?" she asked. "I think it does," Jordan said. "You don't change the world with one story. You change it by keeping people thinking." "That's what we did today," Lena nodded, feeling something she hadn't felt in a while. Hope. Not a loud, dramatic kind of hope, but a small one, like a candle in a dark room. It was enough. When she finally stepped outside, the air was cool and clean. The streets glowed under streetlights, and a gentle breeze brushed her hair. She took a deep breath, feeling lighter. As she walked home, her phone buzzed again, a text from her father. "Heard your broadcast. You made me proud. Truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand." She smiled, slipping her phone back into her pocket. The words echoed in her mind as she crossed the street. Truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand. When she reached her apartment, she opened her notebook one last time. On a fresh page, she wrote, "The real work of journalism isn't choosing sides. It's keeping conversation alive." She underlined it twice, then closed the book. Outside her window, the city was still awake. Cars moving, people talking, lights flickering. The world hadn't changed overnight. But maybe, just maybe, a few more people were thinking differently. Questioning gently instead of shouting loudly. And for Lena, that was enough. She didn't need fame or viral stories. She just needed to know she'd done her job. Not to argue, not to win, but to remind people that the truth, even when quiet, still matters. She turned off the lamp and looked out at the stars. For the first time all week, she felt peaceful. The debate would continue, new stories would come, and the headlines would keep changing. But the lesson would stay the same. That truth isn't about who speaks loudest, but who listens deepest. And somewhere in that silence between noise and understanding, the story found its ending, calm, steady, and real.